take real cases from the justice system and break them down. The facts, the failures, and the people behind them. I'm Anna.
And I'm Sydney. Today's episode is a heavy one. We're going to be talking about Andre Hatchett, a man who spent 25 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. His story is honestly one of the most disturbing examples of injustice I've ever come across.
Same. And what makes it even worse is how preventable it all was. So let's rewind. It was February 18th, 1991, around 11 p.m. Police in Brooklyn responded to a call about an unconscious woman in Monroe Street Park.
When they arrived, they found Nada Mae Carter. She was only 38, completely nude, badly beaten, and lying face up near a handball court. Her injuries were brutal. The medical examiner later said she'd been strangled with a ligature and beaten in the head and neck. She also had scrapes and abrasions, which meant she had been dragged.
It was an awful scene, but the investigation that followed, it was rushed, sloppy, and full of red flags that somehow got ignored.
Nada Mae had been seen earlier that night with Andre Hatchett. They were at the rooming house she lived in with her mother, Zella Mae Carter. But let's be clear, Andre knew Nada Mae because his aunt lived there too. He visited almost every day. They were familiar, not suspicious.
Exactly. But Andre quickly became the main suspect. Why? Because a man named Jerry Williams, said he saw Andre commit the crime. That was pretty much the entire case.
Let's break down Jerry Williams for a second. He was a known criminal, like over 20 prior convictions. While in custody for an unrelated burglary, he suddenly tells police that he witnessed a murder a week earlier.
And not just any murder, the murder of Nada Mae Carter. He claimed he and a woman named Popeye saw the attack from 35 to 40 feet away in a park at night in the rain. The whole story just doesn't add up. The woman Jerry Williams was with, Popeye, was the nickname of a woman, the supposed secondary witness to the crime. In her initial police lineup, she said the attacker looked like someone other than Hatchett. But she later changed her story and identified Hatchett. She was never called to testify, and her conflicting identifications were never used by the defense, missing a critical opportunity to undermine the prosecution's case.
What makes it even worse? He first pointed to someone else entirely, a man who also happened to be in custody that night. That guy had a rock solid alibi and was cleared immediately.
But that detail, that Jerry initially ID'd someone else, was never shared with Andre Hatchett's defense team. That's a huge deal. It's a Brady violation. Under Brady v. Maryland, prosecutors have to share any evidence that could help the defense.
And it wasn't the only thing they didn't share. Jerry told police that he and Popeye were high on crack the day of the murder. But when prosecutors asked him about it during the trial, he said no, lied, right there on stand. That's perjury.
And the jury never knew. They believed his testimony, even though it was inconsistent, untrustworthy, and straight up unbelievable.
Let's not forget Andre's physical state at the time. 6 months earlier, he had been shot in the neck and in both legs. He used 2 crutches to walk and couldn't even raise his voice properly.
Meanwhile, the medical examiner testified that this crime required extreme physical force. There was a violent struggle. The body was dragged and posed, with her head propped against a tree. There is just no way someone on crutches with limited strength could have done that.
But Andre's defense attorney never brought that up, not even once. They didn't highlight his medical condition, which could have completely destroyed the prosecution's narrative.
That part really stung me. Like, how does that not come up at trial? How do you not defend your client with the most obvious physical evidence that he couldn't have done this?
I think it says a lot about the kind of legal defense people get when they can't afford top-tier lawyers. If you don't have resources, you get ignored. You get left behind.
Which brings us to 2016. That's when the Brooklyn Conviction Review Unit, along with the Innocence Project and attorney Jim Brochin, took another look at Andre's case, and what they found was jaw-dropping.
They uncovered suppressed evidence, a broken-down timeline, a physically impossible scenario, and most of all, a wrong conviction that cost an innocent man 25 years of his life.
March 10th, 2016. That's when Andre was finally exonerated. After a quarter of a century in prison for something he didn't do. He walked out a free man, but he also walked out with years of pain, lost time, and trauma that can't be undone.
This case exposes so much about how broken the system is. Eyewitness misidentification, prosecutorial misconduct, ineffective defense, all of it. And when the person being accused is black, poor, disabled, the odds are stacked so much higher.
That's a point we can't overlook. Andre Hatchett was a 24-year-old black man with special needs, walking with crutches, barely able to speak. Instead of protecting him, the system turned him into a target.
I remember reading notes of the Innocence Project on this case, and it made me emotional. They didn't even just help prove Andre's innocence. They helped expose everything that went wrong. They made sure people were held accountable.
So many people owe their freedom to organizations like the Innocence Project. Without them, Andre might still be sitting in a cell, just like thousands of others who've been wrongfully convicted.
This case really made me ask, how many other Andres are out there? People who don't have a voice, who are trapped because someone lied or because a prosecutor wanted a win.
That's why we need oversight. We need legal reforms. We need prosecutors who don't bury evidence. And we need defense attorneys who actually fight for their clients.
Before we officially wrap up, I think it's important to acknowledge the human cost of what happened to Andre Hatchett. It's easy to throw around numbers, 25 years, 20 convictions, one mistaken identity. But those are numbers represent real lives, real pain, and in Andre's case, a lifetime lost behind bars.
And the thing is, once you're labeled a criminal in this country, especially as a black man, it follows you, even if you're innocent, even after you're exonerated. Andre had to rebuild his entire life of a system that never cared about the truth from the beginning.
And I wonder how much of that time in prison he spent thinking about the people who put him there. The prosecutors who buried the evidence, the witnesses who lied, the lawyers who didn't defend him properly. I wonder if he still thinks about that dark park, that rainy night, that moment, his life changed forever, even though he wasn't the one who caused it.
It's heartbreaking, but it also makes us realize how important it is to stay informed, to ask questions, to speak up when something doesn't seem right. We can't just rely on the justice system to fix itself. We need to hold it accountable.
Exactly, because the truth is, the justice system doesn't break on its own. It's broken by people. People who make choices to ignore the truth or prioritize a conviction over fairness. But that also means it can be changed by people, and that change starts with us.
So, if you're listening to this, we challenge you to do something. Look up your local conviction review unit, donate to the Innocence Project, support legislation that promotes fair trials and public defender funding. Share Andre's story, because the people know the harder it is for cases like this to keep happening in the dark.
And don't stop there. Talk to your friends, your family, your teachers, even your local reps. Because wrongful convictions don't just happen in headlines, they happen in neighborhoods, in courtrooms that look just like yours.
Andre Hatchett's name deserves to be remembered not just as someone who suffered through injustice, but as someone whose story sparked awareness and hopefully action.
Thank you so much for listening today. We hope this episode gave you something to think about, maybe even something to fight for. We'll be back soon with another case that challenges what we think we know about justice. I believe that this case was a prime example of blatant ignorance and inadequacy within our justice system. Prosecutors convicted Hatchett with lack of sufficient evidence. Why did prosecutors feel that an eyewitness account was enough to convict, especially after this information was given to the police after being convicted of another crime?
I thought it was incredible how that even in the 90s there was so much injustice being done just because of the laziness of some. By not following up with things, using unreliable witnesses, and straight up not doing your job correctly, someone's life can be completely destroyed. The questions I have regarding this case are: how can the prosecution sit with themselves after not doing their job correctly, causing who they know is an innocent man to rot behind bars for 25 years? And until then, stay curious, stay aware, and never stop asking, what if they got it wrong?
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.